Today's topic that I will be discussing is the topic on whether K-pop ships are real. In other words, whether certain male or female idols are attracted to the same sex? Or are the fans just being delusional and pushing their own fantasies onto their favorite idols? To answer this simply, it would be a yes and a no. Yes, because despite how K-pop companies in South Korea as a whole are still closed-minded towards same-sex couples, there are K-pop idols who are part of the LGBTQ community. Which means, there is a possibility of your ships being real. However, I would say that majority of the ones we may think to be real are mostly likely not. There are two factors that I will be talking about. One is why we as fans think certain ships are real, and the other factor of why idol ships do have the possibility of being real. Keep in mind that this topic won't be focusing on ships pertaining to the opposite sex, but rather ships that pertain to the same sex, since majority of the ships in K-pop are of same-sex ships. Furthermore, this topic will be split into two main factors, and under those factors I will be providing points or reasons to them. In addition, the points that I will be providing may be directed towards not just same-sex ships, but also male same-sex ship, since majority of the ships in K-pop is of male same-sex ships. Let's begin. There are two possibilities as to why I believe fans think certain ships are real. The first one is the over-excessive fan service the idols provide, due to the fact that they are fully aware that their fans are shipping them. And the second one is because a lot of fans tend to perceive certain idols to be part of the LGBTQ community already, and therefore believe any ship that those certain idols are in is likely real. As you can see, there are 2 points being established here that I will be expanding on. The first one being the over-excessive fan service done by the idols, because they are aware of the fans shipping them, and the second one being the perceived image that fans have placed on certain idols. These two are possibilities as to why I believe fans think their ships are real. Guys, they know. An exceptionally good number of idols know about their ships, if not all. Anyone who has been a fan of any musical celebrity, boy bands, girl bands, and yes, K-pop groups, should know that providing fan services for their fans is not rare. In fact, it is typically pushed by the celebrities, or the idols and their companies themselves, to help gain more loyal fans, and to appeal to their fans' fantasies if needed. For the K-pop industry, it is part of being an idol and one of the main reasons idols host fan meeting events. Fan meeting events are sort of the way idols can easily showcase their relationship with their fellow group mates up close and in person with their fans. While for fans, it is a way to see their favorite groups, members, and ships up close. However, it's because they know about their ships that it makes it easy for them to perform certain things that they know their fans will enjoy. One way to know whether a ship is fan service or real is, for one, take a look back at how your ships were created. For instance, were your ships formed by you or the idols themselves and their company? If they were formed by you, then there is about a 10 to 20% chance that they are actually real. Because more than likely, you are basing this assumption off of something you probably saw between those two idols, but again, that is only about a 10 to 20% chance. However, if your ships were created by the idols themselves and is being openly promoted by their company, then there is a 0% chance that they are real. Furthermore, if they are expressing an overly amount of physical affection to one another in public, in front of the camera, and in front of the fans, then there is even a bigger chance that they aren't real. And by real, I mean romantically involved with one another. They can be real if you are shipping them as just friends. However, if you are genuinely believing that they are dating each other, then sweetie, I don't know what to tell you. Look at Woo-san as an example. Woo-san is a ship I had talked about in my Chapter 3 Unpopular Opinions video, and how I believe that they are completely fan service. One of the reasons why I believe that they are fan service is because the fans weren't the ones who started shipping these two to begin with, it was the members themselves. San and Woo-young came up with their own ship name, and they also never failed to make sure to have any sort of physical, borderline sexual, interactions with one another, which they know their fans can easily misconstrue as romantic moments. Not only that, but these two, and even the other members, are fully aware that the fans ship Woo-san, and they are definitely aware that the fans ship them romantically. That is exactly why Woo-san feels so comfortable doing some questionable things with each other so easily, and why the members feel so unfazed by such interactions. This is not to say they aren't close friends, but if you can't see the openly physical, and sexual tension that these two purposely exude out of one another, being well aware of the camera, and how the fans ship them, then again, I don't know what to tell you. Furthermore, we need to think realistically here. South Korea is still quite homophobic. Do you honestly believe that KQ Entertainment would allow them to be so open about their relationship, if they were actually romantically involved with one another? No Korean company openly promotes opposite-sex couples, yet alone same-sex couples, and I don't believe KQ Entertainment are trying to be the first ones to do so either. It is considered suicidal. If the fans find out, despite them being the same ones who were shipping them to begin with, they will go ballistic, and if the general Korean public finds out, they will be marching for a witch hunt. So, do I think Susan is real? No, but do I think they are close and good friends? Yes. I mean, them being close is the only reason why they feel so comfortable doing half the stuff they do with one another, and if they weren't, then they are really great actors. But romantically speaking, Lusan isn't real, which is the point I am trying to bring on about majority of the other idols you guys ship, who are most likely aware of your shipping, and or being openly promoted by the company or their group. Lastly, we need to keep in mind that it is because they are aware of you shipping them, that they have the confidence to openly act a certain way towards one another. Them being aware allows them to openly feed into your fantasies that you've placed on them when shipping them, therefore to you, it's coming across as real. I mean, think about it, you are seeing your fantasies come to life through the people you idolize, it only makes sense that you would believe it to be true, and want to indulge, and or invest in it also. The second point under this factor of why fans believe their ships are real, has to do with the way we perceive our idols to be. Whether intentional or not, we place these identities on our idols, based on either our own fantasies, videos we see of them, and or the connection we've grown towards them. And we do all of this, despite not knowing our idols beyond the videos we see of them online. So in other words, if you are perceiving your idol to be a certain way, despite not knowing them personally, you end up translating everything they do or say, or the interactions they have with other people, the same way. For an example, we are already aware of the existence of gay idols, or idols who are part of the LGBTQ community. However, we do not know who they are, except for the very few who have opened up or came out. Despite not knowing, it hasn't exactly stopped fans from assuming certain idols are part of the LGBTQ community. The amount of K-pop videos I have seen of people claiming certain idols to be part of the community, despite those idols themselves not ever coming out saying that they are, already speaks on the perception and the idea that they have of those certain idols. The perceived image they have already placed on those certain idols. In addition, if you have already perceived your idol to be part of the LGBTQ community, then it only makes sense that you will easily believe any ships that you put them in to be real. Their fans will most likely believe that their ship is a homosexual ship because they already have the idea that one of their idols in that ship is gay, or if not, both. But why is that? Why do fans already perceive some idols to be part of the LGBTQ community, despite the idols never coming out as one? Well, to answer, part of it has to do with the overly excessive fan service they do with their same-sex members for their fans. While another has to do with the blurred line between the similar clothes both male and female idols wear. And the last one has to do with the way some people perceive certain actions to be gay, whether intentionally or unintentionally. It is kind of how a lot of people have this stereotypical description of how gay people are overly affectionate or touchy with one another and with other people, act a certain way, and dress a certain way. Also, how, if a certain person is gay, then ultimately, anything that they do or say is gay also. Even though by now, in 2020, in a time where everyone is promoting wokeness, equality, and acceptance, we should already know that there isn't a one-size-fits-all for how a certain group is or should act. Not all gay people are the same, and not all black people are the same. But unfortunately, we've been conditioned throughout the years to associate certain characteristics and actions to certain groups of people. Whether it be towards black people, Asian people, white people, or homosexuals. It has become so normal for our society to do that, to easily judge an individual based on the group or community that they are part of, rather than simply judge them based on the individual themselves. The K-pop culture is not an exception either. Despite the K-pop culture being more open and fluid with their music, dancing, and clothing, it still doesn't mean people won't perceive them a certain way, because of those fluidity. Whether you want to admit it or not, you have most likely perceived one of your idols a certain way. which has later influenced the way you interpret their actions and the relationships they have with other people. Take ex-Stray Kids member Woojin as an example. About a couple months ago he was being accused of sexually harassing someone, making up his company, and bullying his members. These accusations led to a lot of the fans viewing him in a negative light, which then later led to people digging up videos of when he was part of Stray Kids, to try and see how he would act towards the members, to help feed into their negative perception of him. However, it was later proven that those accusations were false, but unfortunately the damage was already done. Fans ended up drawing up a false and a negative perception of him, making everything he did and the relationships he had, to be perceived in a negative way also. This same thing can be applied to supposed homosexual idols, where certain things may spark fans into believing an idol is gay, and therefore start perceiving everything that the idol does and the relationship they have as gay also, which ultimately leads to fans believing that the ship they are in is real. I will admit, I have done and you have too. I used to think a certain idol was actually gay despite them never coming out as one. Certain actions and the way they spoke and interacted with other people made me believe wholeheartedly that they were part of the LGBTQ community. And that was only because I already associated their actions and even clothing choice to be part of that community, despite not everyone in that community being or acting the same way. This later led to me believing that any same-sex ships they were in were real. Because in my head, they had no reason to be that open and that affectionate to one another, in front of a camera, being watched by a society that is yet to be openly accepting of same-sex couples. However, whether or not I still believe that this idol is gay does not matter. Unless they come right out and say it, I have no business placing that identity on them, and the same goes for you too. However, by now, we should already know that fans don't care to respect idols and will continue to believe whatever they want to believe, as well as display those beliefs in front of other people's faces, even to the idols themselves. I mean, take NCT 10 as another example. If you search him up in any ships he is in, majority of those ship videos surround the fact that those fans believe that he is gay, and therefore anything he does or says is seen as gay. Even though 10 has never came out as gay or being part of the LGBTQ community. The amount of rainbow color schemes that I see in his ship videos and the number of videos dedicated to questioning his sexuality, him being gay, or for the gay community, is insane. Don't get me wrong, an idol can fully well be for and advocate for the LGBTQ community and still not be a part of it. It just means you are an ally, believing in a cause that goes beyond you and your own beliefs or values. I mean, take me for an example. I am for the LGBTQ community, but I am not a part of that community. I am completely black, completely straight, and completely into guys. However, it doesn't mean I can't fight or support a group of people who are only fighting to be accepted and to have the same rights that are given to me as a straight person. Whenever I see those videos of him questioning his sexuality or assuming his sexuality for him, I just sometimes find myself asking questions like, how would Chen feel about this, or do fans even care that their idols probably see this? Now, you may be wondering, is this wrong? Well, the answer is yes, it is wrong. It's wrong because you are putting a title on a person that never asked for such a title, and you are placing an identity on someone that genuinely doesn't even know who you are. Yes, it's possible 10 may not be offended by those videos, but he may feel uncomfortable by them, especially if he is actually gay but isn't open about it, or confident enough to do so. Or even if he isn't actually gay, seeing those videos will probably have him questioning his sexuality. 10, or any of the other idols I mentioned or you are a fan of, could actually be gay, and the ships they are in could actually be real, but that isn't for you or me to decide that, but for those idols themselves. You can ship your idols, but it doesn't mean you start placing certain titles and identities on them, to furthermore feed your shipping agenda. There are LGBTQ K-pop idols, of course there are. I have a link down below that will take you to an article listing some of the idols who have openly came out as part of the community, to help you see that they most definitely exist. However, for which ship is real and which is not, can honestly vary on your own judgment. However, we need to understand that the ones who may be real, take up an exceedingly small percentage and are super rare. There are a lot of factors or reasons that go into why certain ships may be real, especially the ones within the same group. However, for the sake of not making this video too long, I will only be addressing two of them. The two being idol culture as a whole, and the second being the way in which the idols are brought up together. Anyone who is a fan of K-pop know how idols come to be, how they are scouted and how they are trained. We also have a good idea of how the K-pop industry works, and how the K-pop companies present their idols to the public and how their image is crafted. K-pop culture is very vast and it holds a lot of things within it. However, one of the biggest parts of K-pop culture is the blurred line between the opposite gender. In comparison to males from other countries, it's clear that Asian men, especially Korean men, are more comfortable wearing makeup and gender-neutral clothing. These two things have become part of the aesthetic of K-pop culture. Compared to centuries ago, in today's Korean society, men are being praised for having more delicate features that make them look more pretty, rather than your typical handsome, or even manly, features or image. The term flower boy, or prince is often used to address those who although are handsome, but give off a pretty or a beautiful aura, or image of them. In addition, you often hear fellow male groups members call each other pretty, or call a certain member pretty because of the way they may look. I mean, just take the boys new, aka Chanhee, as an example. This man has been called pretty by his members about the same amount of times he gets teased by them. But that is only because he really does look pretty. But again, what is pretty? If you search it up on Google, Google will tell you, and I quote, pretty is being attractive in a delicate way without being truly beautiful or handsome. In other words, you are someone who is seen as delicate, however, rather than being beautiful or handsome, you are pretty. And if you look at New, you will understand why he gets called pretty more so often than being called handsome. His features are delicate, he has a very slender body, and his whole persona comes off very feminine, especially from a stereotypical point of view. However, this doesn't mean he's gay, but if you were to present him to someone who isn't all that into K-pop or even aware of the existence of K-pop, they would most likely tell you otherwise. This doesn't just apply to makeup, or clothing, or even the way the idols look, but also the way in which the opposite sex indulges each other's music. I mean, male idols doing covers of female idols' music has basically been ingrained into idol culture. It's a must in variety shows, fan meetings, and concerts to see your favorite male idol act in a feminine manner while dancing to female songs and doing dances originally meant for females. The more male idols are being more comfortable addressing each other with words commonly used for the opposite gender, dressing in clothing more commonly associated to the opposite gender, and dancing in a way more commonly seen by the opposite gender, the more the line between the opposite genders become blurred. Which in turn, leads to the likelihood of there being an Adam and a Steve, rather than an Adam and Eve. A lot of the times, the interactions we see between two same-sex idols, that we easily interpret as romantic love, is typically coming from the emotional attraction and fondness that those two idols have for one another, and not a physical one. The chemistry we see between the same gender, is due to them depending on one another from their time as trainees, growing up together, and facing hardships together also, to now their current situation, their careers as idols. I mean, think about it. You scout a bunch of kids and teens to train together and potentially debut together. During the process of training them and planning their debut, you ask them to live together, eat together, possibly share the same room, work together, and all in all, suffer together. Not to mention, in the age in which they are in, their hormones would be through the roof, so what exactly do these companies think would happen? They may not be physically attracted to one another, but it doesn't mean they aren't prone to experimenting with one another or be emotionally attracted or attached to one another. It is very easy for the age in which they are brought up to work together and live together, for them to catch some sort of feelings for one another, especially when they are coming from a different place or country, leaving their family behind, making the only people they can depend on, being each other. Another thing to consider is SAS songs, and the idols' busy schedules. A lot of idols have probably seen the worst and have had the worst experience with extreme fans who are mostly of the opposite sex, some even being traumatic. Because of that, some idols may have even developed PTSD, or anxiety. Though this doesn't necessarily mean it will change their sexuality, but it definitely does make it hard for them to be more trusting to the opposite sex, or at least makes it hard for them to feel comfortable around them. As for their busy schedule, it would be more or less common sense that their busy schedule will limit the access or free time they have to develop any relationship with someone of the opposite sex. This one applies more to popular groups, like BTS for an example. Though I am sure they are all probably dating someone privately, and we won't know about unless they want us to, it would be harder for them to keep up their relationship with whoever they are dating, due to their busy schedule. I mean, just take a look at Kang Daniel and Twice's Jiho, These two unfortunately broke up due to their busy schedule. If two people can't even keep up with their relationship due to their busy schedule, imagine trying to start or even find one. Not to mention, it is very known that dating is considered scandalous, essentially bad for an idol's image and even the whole group's image. While there are some companies who allow their idols to date, giving them the freedom to live their lives, and to also be able to transfer those emotions and romantic experiences into their music, there are others, however, who place restriction or completely ban their idols from dating completely, furthermore making it harder for them to be exposed to the opposite sex. This is not to say that they will suddenly change their sexual attraction, but if two people of the same sex can somehow feel attracted to one another, it's easy for the two to grow feelings towards each other, being in the same group and all, than it is for them to venture out and seek someone of the opposite sex. Before I end this video, I want to give a quick shout out to Helen Shu, whose core post was actually the basis for this video. The link to the posts will be down below in the description box. Thank you and see you next time.